So, scenario one, a friend is getting divorced. He or she would call up your agency and is completely at loss for what they should know and how this whole process runs and what to do now, and the sky is falling. You know, can they have their hand held during the whole process? Can they bring a friend with them? How long would it take to mediate? How much does it cost, and et cetera? What are some common questions that people have when they call you?
Well, it's interesting you say that, because that's a very typical kind of first conversation I have with someone on the phone. And that conversation often lasts anywhere from 15 to maybe 45 minutes, even occasionally an hour, because many people don't understand a great deal about divorce. They've been told some things by their friends which may or may not be representative or accurate. So we end up going through all kinds of explanations, not only from a court standpoint, how long it takes that process to start, the whole, the paperwork of the serving of summons, petition, et cetera. I mean, there's lots of the paperwork pieces, but then also letting them know about our own process of getting information from them and how we work as a team. So it does take a while to explain to them how things work. And in fact, people often ask, how much will it cost? And it's hard to know in advance, but we get that question often enough that usually we'll email people a couple of things we've prepared that, give them an idea of what the total cost might be of working with our services, whether or not they have children, and also a chart that, kind of compares our services with other options that they would have for divorce, not only in terms of cost, but also in terms of what's the focus of those things. So we often, provide those to people as a way to help them make decisions about, are we the right mediators for them? Because we're not necessarily the right mediators for everybody. We have a particular way of doing things. They might like it, they might not.
Right, right, right. Thank you. I have another question about the divorce mediation. Mm-hmm. Who is responsible for beginning the legal divorce process, usually?
Can be either party. In fact, couples often kind of play hot potato with it. You do it, you do it, you do it. The reality is in California, it makes no difference from a legal standpoint as to who is the petitioner and who's the respondent, other than the fact that they have to pay a fee when they file. But there's no advantage to being either the petitioner or the respondent.
But there is an advantage for bringing a clear resolution to a party that has a lot at stake.
I'm not clear.
Well, there is an advantage to bringing a clear communication, a resolution to people that have a lot at stake, either in a corporate environment or in a family environment. It is to their benefit to have a good communication process.
Yes,
Right.
Certainly to have.
There's a lot at stake.
Yes, there is, but I was trying to respond to the question about the who files, whether it be, especially in a divorce, or whether it be an employment discrimination situation. Mediations aren't always involved or aren't always connected with things that end up in court. A lot of times people will pursue mediation specifically so they don't have to go to court. Whether that be disputes between neighbors, disputes in homeowner associations, employment-related disputes, small business disputes. People will sometimes go ahead and mediate because they say, we don't want to spend the money in court or even in arbitration. We'd rather like to see if, with the help of a mediator, perhaps we could resolve this particular issue at less cost, and not only less financial cost, but less cost to our relationship, because often these are people who will have an ongoing relationship, and some of them recognize that it's worthwhile to not pursue the more adversarial routes to solving their problem.
Right, and that's where it saves us quite a lot of energy and time and burning bridges to have a third party help them come to a mutual understanding of some kind. Right. That's, I'm all for mediation. I'm all for communicating clearly. I've read once that it's only a slight bit harder to communicate with the dead as with some of the living. I think it's true. Sometimes people say one thing and they mean something else, and sometimes words are symbols and covers for something different, and sometimes couples come from different backgrounds, racial backgrounds, age, relationship backgrounds, and the symbology could really be a static for the two. There are things we don't talk about in certain families, and when we get with someone who comes from a different family, that things are talked about in their family, that could come into a conflict because the other person might be insensitive or not sensitive enough for the other person because they have a different cultural background and different traditions and different symbology. And being very clear about speaking with each other and listening, I think, is a lost art. I think you're helping resurrect it. A lot of people are helping resurrect it by trying to be conscious of actually what they're saying.
Well, yes, and not only what they're saying, but what others are saying and what assumptions they're adding, because
Let's talk about assumptions. I love that. Please, go on.
Well, I think one of the reasons that communications often break down between people is because you might say something to me with a particular intention, and as I hear that, I assume that you mean certain kinds of things, and so then I respond not actually what you really said, but I respond to my assumption about what you said, and then you're kind of wondering about what that's about, and then you respond potentially even to your assumption about what I said without either one of us necessarily checking it out and say, well, wait a minute, now by that, do you mean that you really don't want to move out until this point in time? As opposed to assuming that, oh, well, that means then she's not going to move out until sometime in April. Well, we don't check those things out.
Right. Thank you so much for being on the show with us. I'm so happy that you were here with us today, and I'm so grateful that we had a chance to talk about mediation and bringing peace to a much hot topic on communicating with people, and bilingual. So if I didn't say that correctly, it's okay. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you, Stephen Reynolds, for being with us today, and thank you for watching.
Thank you.